Hello and welcome to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about all components of business and how to utilize them for exponential growth. My name is Nathan Cassiotis. I'm a business growth expert where I help business owners grow and scale to create wealth and freedom. Today, I have an awesome guest. His name is Daniel Murray, and he is transforming business culture with empathy. A keynote speaker, empathy expert, and CEO at Empathic Consulting. With a rich career in corporate strategy and management consulting at Australia's largest financial services organizations, Daniel now empowers businesses and leaders to enhance performance through the transformative power of people, culture, and empathy. And combining his mathematical and strategic acumen with a profound understanding of emotions, neuroscience, and behavioural economics, Daniel has established himself as a leading expert in embedding strategic empathy. As the dynamic CEO of Empathic Consulting, Daniel has delivered compelling keynotes and training sessions to top-tier companies and major conferences throughout the APAC region, and his captivating presentations and workshops not only engage and entertain, but also inspire clients to pursue deeper understanding and elevated performance. Welcome, Daniel Murray, and thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thanks, Nathan. Great to see you, mate, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome, mate. It was great to be interviewed by you recently. Now I get to repay the favor and have a great conversation around these really important topics about business. So I'm sure you're going to be sharing a lot of value with everybody today. And you are a successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, just introduce yourself by telling us a little bit more about you and your journey.
Yeah, so as you sort of mentioned, I actually did a degree in mathematics at university because I didn't really know what else to do. I didn't like reading, and I sort of didn't mind maths. It was quite easy for me in some ways, but didn't really know where I was headed. I fell into financial services after actually working in tuition and tutoring kids. And what I found interesting working with kids is just how the psychology played such an interesting role in their learning and their development. But I sort of put that aside, went into banking, financial services, insurance. And again, what was really interesting to me was we're surrounded by all these numbers, but actually the numbers weren't the hard things to deal with in the organizations. It was how do you deal with people, politics, egos? How do you understand all of this diversity that's going on? There's so many factors that sort of make things like people and culture really challenging. And I really wanted to find a way to blend these two worlds together. And I started Empathic Consulting from that perspective of how do we help more analytical thinkers, people who are a bit more sort of like the world to be black and white and they like structure and process. How do I help those people understand the people, the culture, those more intangible factors in their organizations? Because if you can't get those things right, often it doesn't matter how good your machine is, how good your sort of tangible elements are. If you can't get some of those people elements right, it becomes incredibly difficult to run an effective organization.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Love the story. And yeah, completely agree. You can't really have a decent business without people, right? You can get it to a certain level by yourself, but to do it properly and then to keep them and keep growing. So I love this. And yeah, I love the empathy, conversation, which is really powerful. And you mentioned those the left brainer type of people. And I think anybody, right, whether it's easier or not, that is important. And I know one of the subjects you talk about is around empathy for people that we don't particularly like, right? So this is an interesting one because there's always some tension that can happen, in business. So I guess why is it important, firstly, to have empathy, for people that we don't particularly like?
Well, I mean, if we just start back a step, why is it important to have empathy in general? If we don't understand what drives people, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to go and take your product to market, if you don't understand why people like your product, you might sell a fair few today, but if you don't understand what's really going on in the lives of those people and why they're choosing you today, when something shifts out there, you could be completely at sea. And we saw that with, you could argue we saw that with Nokia. Nokia focused so much on making all of these different types of phones, but when the whole world shifted around them, everything sort of fell apart for them. And so having empathy for anyone is understanding why do they do what they do, what drives them, whether it be customers, staff, shareholders, investors, what's driving them, why are they doing it, is really important. Now, the thing that I find interesting is some people say to me, oh, I'm quite empathetic. And what they mean is I'm quite caring for people I already like or people who are like me, which is good. I'm not going to suggest that it's not a good thing. It's lovely. But actually, to be more strategic and more have more impact in the world, we need to be able to cross those divides between us and people who are nothing like us and people who actually see the world very differently. And in a time of social media where polarization and extreme views on just about any topic are really rapidly sort of gaining traction, it's the ability for us to step back and go, hang on, I don't agree with that, but that's interesting, and I'd love to understand what's driving that. Because if I understand what's driving it, it might change my opinion. It might change my opinion about that person's world, might change my opinion about that person, or it might help us actually build a bridge to work together more effectively. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in, as an entrepreneur, you've got to both create your tribe, find those people who really get you and love you and support them. But you've also got to be prepared that that might not last forever. And sometimes you're going to have to move and pivot and change and adapt. And if you've wedded yourself so strongly to your little cult that you don't fit in and have no understanding of anyone else, it could get pretty dangerous and pretty lonely pretty quickly.
Yeah, love it, mate. And it's that the saying of like old school is that, treat people how you want to be treated, but it's actually treat people how they want to be treated, right? In that way, and getting that,
Yeah.
understand that curiosity, right?
Well, often people say it's, empathy is walking in someone else's shoes. And I always say to people, well, it's not really, because if you walk in their shoes, you'll have your experience in their shoes. You won't have their experience. Right. And actually, empathy is going, hey, I'm fascinated by what are they going through? What's driving them? What emotions are they feeling? Why are they choosing to do A, B, or C? When we spoke last time, you talked about people who have that mindset and they get into those ruts of, oh, this isn't going to work and I'm feeling defeated. And, that mindset challenge. Well, I can ask them to change, or we'll just stop thinking like that. Yeah, you can say that to them. It's probably not going to help. Or you can say, well, hang on, talk to me about what's driving that for you. Where does that come from? What are the origins of that story you keep telling yourself? And again, this is where I see empathy as sort of holding back judgment, holding back advice, and being really curious about what's going on for them.
Yeah, I love it, mate. Yeah, the service level problem is not normally the problem, right? You've got to dig a bit deeper and understand what's underlying there, and that's the power of it, definitely, mate. So yeah, I love that. And I guess so as the leader, right? If we're wanting to do this, for our team as well, which is important, right? So it's not just for us, we can obviously lead it, but we want everybody to be working together, and especially if we've got these, difficult things happening. I guess what are some tips or something that we can be doing to help create that area that we can do that and focus on it to create that cohesion between the team members.
Yeah, so some of the killers of empathy and understanding the team, one, we're too busy to ask questions, we're too busy to answer questions, we're too busy to share information, we're too busy to build a relationship, we're just really focused on being transactional. And, if I think about an entrepreneurial journey, you start out, maybe you've got two or three people in your team. Even though you're really busy on the work, those other people are pretty close. You spend time with them, you have a chat, you bounce ideas, and so it can seem like this is really easy. But as you start to grow and get larger, it's easy to have this sort of idea of, well, let's divide and conquer. You do that stuff over there, and I'll do my stuff over here, and therefore we'll separate and all focus on our work. But in doing that, we can also drift apart. And so some of the things I really focused or recommend to leaders who want to build a strong culture is actually have more interactions with each other, give more information to each other, even if you think it's not particularly relevant, or, give people the context and understanding of, well, this is what we're working on and why. What are you working on and why? And how can we make sure these things are going to fit, right? And people often say, oh, do we need a process or a system? You can, but maybe just share a coffee, have lunch together, like just spend some actual time around the work, building a human relationship. And that sounds really simple, but we've actually gotten pretty poor at it over the last couple of decades, particularly in the last decade, I think, because we transact virtually. We have so many interactions online, and it's so much quicker. It feels so much easier and more efficient to flick an email than to have a conversation. What we forget, though, is all of that relationship building that we have during the conversation, during the phone call, doesn't happen in an email. And we can sort of unknowingly build these sort of gaps and spaces between us that leaders just have to fill through being more human and being more interested in their people.
Yeah, awesome, mate. I love that. It's like the sales thing as well, just from a different angle. Is like, you pick up the phone and you can overcome the objection, or you can build the relationship more, like you're talking about, right? Rather than just going back and forth on 10 emails and not really getting anywhere in that way. Yeah.
100%. And look, in a sales perspective, if I pick up the phone and my intention is that I've got a thing and you're going to buy it, and that's my intention for this conversation, then it's a transaction. If I pick up the phone going, I'm really interested in helping you in some way, I don't know what that way is. I could sell you a product. I could introduce you to someone. I could just be there for a chat. I could bounce some idea. I'm just here to serve you and understand what's going on in your world. Now, I might find during that conversation, this product is exactly what you need or not at all what you need. But if I'm building that relationship from a perspective of empathy and understanding to serve, then it's a genuine human relationship. And, I would get probably 50 emails a day that are, I want to buy, I want to sell you something, I want to throw something at you. And even, the genuine or the seemingly genuine ones, they're not an attempt to build a relationship. And that's what humans need more of. We need more relationships and more people we trust and we understand.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Love that connection there as well. And it all comes down to building a really strong team culture. That's what it's all about in business. And I guess from a foundational perspective, what are some of the key elements you think that builds a strong team culture?
Culture's it's a really interesting thing, because when you say it, you go, oh yeah, I know what you mean. And then if I said, okay, so define what it is, well, that gets a little bit dodgier, right? And well, it's sort of the way we do things around here. And what you need to know is that culture is constantly changing and it's never stable. But the things that are really consistent in high performing teams, and we sort of touched them already, first is a high level of trust. And, if I was to talk to a business leader or someone who's got a team and they're thinking, how can I build more trust in my team? What they'll typically think of is, who do I trust in my team? So can I just say, let's put that aside for a second and forget about that. Instead, ask the question, who trusts me? Which of my team members trust me so much that they'll come to me with a problem? They'll, if they stuff something up, they'll come and ask my advice and support. If there's something going on outside in their home life, they're more than comfortable to come to me and say, hey, look, this is what's going on. I'd love your advice, support, help, whatever it might be, right? Who trusts you as a leader? And if you find that the cupboard's pretty bare there, it doesn't matter how much you trust them, because when things go wrong, they're not going to come and ask you questions. When they've got great ideas, they're not going to bring them forward to help the organization. You have to have that foundation of trust. The other thing I'd really recommend is to increase the level of constructive challenge, debate, argument. Really welcome that sort of what Ray Dalio would call radical transparency. Everyone is very open and communicates openly. Now, without trust, you can't do that. So we're sort of building on top of each other now. But when people start communicating honestly and openly, it opens up so much opportunity for us to find better ways of doing things, right? To continue to improve the work that we do, to give each other feedback. And more importantly, it starts to take away the silent, avoidant resentment that can build up in a team. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but people, they get suspicious with each other. They form their own little cliques and groups, and those types of games really destroy an organization.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Completely agree there. And let's talk about measuring this, right? Because you say it's a bit intangible, the way we do things. Some people might say it's demonstrating the values, right? As an example, of what you do in an organization, and that's shown. So how would you measure it? And I guess, improve it or realize, okay, we need to make some adjustments here or something like that, in the culture to make sure that we're portraying ourselves the best way that we're wanting to in the business?
It's challenging because if I ask someone what's the culture like here, I'm essentially asking their conscious part of their brain, what is it, what's the culture like? And that conscious part of the brain goes, I think I know what you're talking about. But if we think of it this way, that part of your brain doesn't actually measure culture. So I want you to think of your brain as being an elephant with a little man riding on his back, right? The little man is your conscious brain, and it's very, very clever, but it thinks it's in full control. The elephant is your subconscious brain, right? This is the emotional, intuitive, instinctive core of your brain, very old. And what we know is that that part of your brain, when it gets upset, it takes full control over the situation. Now, when someone feels unsafe in the culture, which part of the brain is actually responding to that? Well, it's the subconscious. When someone feels safe and comfortable, it's the subconscious. Now, when you ask someone, give me a number for that, the subconscious can't answer that. It doesn't do numbers. It doesn't do language. And so you can ask people, you can do surveys, you can do all sorts of different ways to try and measure it, but be careful, because you might get a number that you fascinate about, but that's actually got nothing to do with what people are feeling there. And again, if you're a leader of a team or an organization and you think, oh, I don't know how my people feel, then my suggestion would be go and talk to them. And if you've got a high level of trust, they'll say, hey, you know what? This is really annoying me. Athan, this process is stupid. Why are we doing it? They'll tell you what's going on. They'll tell you how they feel. And that's what I mean by having empathy to build performance, right? Because if I don't understand how people feel, how do I get that discretionary effort? Because we go back to our model of the elephant and the rider. Guess where all the discretionary effort sits? Guess where the passion sits? Guess where the sense of purpose sits? It's all subconscious, isn't it? This is what we want to really tap into. We want this elephant to be driving and striving and challenging, and we want them to care. And so if you want your people to care, you've got to care about them. And this would be one thing I'd absolutely say to all team people leaders. If you don't care about your people, you shouldn't be their leader. If you don't care about every single one of them and be interested in them and have time to really find out what's going on, if you don't care about them, then vacate the seat and let someone else be the leader, because you're not there. And this is something I think leaders don't like to stare into because they think they're busy. No, that is the work. If you want those elephants pulling and striving for you, you got to care about them.
Yeah, love it, mate. Completely agree. So powerful there. Let's talk about from the hiring sense quickly now, right? Because, we've got the culture already, however many people you've got in your team, but you're going to be bringing people in ideally, as the business is growing, and you want to make sure that they're a culture fit, right? Or, if they're not, they can have a very big detrimental impact, right, on the organization as well. So I'd love to know, your thoughts around this on what to do, not to do type of thing.
I'm going to offer a caution around the idea of cultural fit. You play sport, right? You play soccer. I used to play a lot of soccer, football when I was younger, and could run a lot more than I do now. But if you bring a new player into the team, will the team change? Well, of course they will. Of course it will, right? It'll change a bit. And the issue is not whether we bring someone in who makes sure they create no change. It's whether we bring someone in, and then as the team changes, we all readjust to make it what we want it to be in the future. So when you're hiring people, sometimes when people say hiring for cultural fit, what they do is they bring in people who are the same as we've already got. My suggestion would be you might not need just the same types of people all the time. Sometimes you need people who are very different, diverse, have different ways of viewing the world. If you're a tech person and you're a tech, building a tech organization, at some point, you're going to need people who can see past the technology into way more different areas of the business. Right? If you're one of those maverick entrepreneurs, you're probably going to need someone who's got an accounting background who can rein you in at times. Now, would you say they have the same culture, those two people? Probably not. But together, they need to form a good culture. So when you're hiring, I think what you want to be looking for is, do these people, do they bring something that's going to improve our organization? Do they bring something that's going to make us a better group? The second thing I'd say is hire on values and behaviors. So what do these people value? What do they care about? What are they passionate about? What do they see what we do and go, oh, I'd love to be a part of that? Not the pay or the results that, sit over here, but the mission and the purpose of why we are doing what we're doing. And then, what are the things how do they make decisions? What are the values that they really stand for? And does that align enough with the organization for us to work together? It's not always going to be a perfect fit, and that's okay. But your Greek background, I know, Anthony, you'll probably know this old Greek saying, I think it's Heraclitus said it, you never walk into the same river twice because the river's not the same and the man's not the same. Right? Your culture is constantly changing, your business is constantly changing, and the environment around you is constantly changing. Be okay with that. The thing to be careful of is it changing in a way that's helping support what we're trying to do here and making us better?
Yeah, I love that reframe, a different area there about improving as it is always growing over time, like you said. And then I guess, sometimes for whatever reason, people aren't the right fit, for our business, and we need to, get rid of them, fire them, whatever word you want to use there to get them out. Now, obviously doing this, with empathy is ideal, right? Now, is it possible, or how would you approach, I guess, to make it a nicer experience and doing it with empathy, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, I use the word fire quite often. Some people don't like that word. They think it sounds very dramatic, and yes, I get it. But you're absolutely right. As we talk about that river and everything changes, and at some point, for many, many, many reasons, a person who was the right fit isn't anymore, or someone realizes they don't want to do it, they don't want to do whatever the case might be, right? But at some point, we get to a position where we're talking with our person and this just isn't working. Now, unfortunately, what I see poor leaders or managers do in these situations is person isn't performing, so I'll push them over to the side, put them in the corner over there, and hopefully they'll, disappear one day and no one will have to deal with them. That creates so many more problems for your organization than what you really should do and what we want leaders to do, which is have a conversation with the person and say, do you really love working here? My experience, people who aren't performing well will often say, no, not really. I'm struggling. I don't really like it. And you go, fantastic. Thanks for letting me know. What do you love? What are you passionate about? What would light you up in the morning? What would get you out of bed excited? And if, if you're not doing that here, that's okay. But as a leader, I want to help you get to there. And so what I think we should be doing when we're going to move people on, let them go, is to be really open and honest with them and also listen to them and go, what would you rather do? How can I help you? How can I support you through what is a transition? To transition sometimes from this role to another role, from this job to another, from this organization to another organization. But I'm going to care about you all the way through that process. Right? Just because you're not performing doesn't mean I don't care about you. I still care about you. We've just found that this doesn't work anymore. That's okay. How do we move from here to somewhere else so you can do your best work and we can continue to do our best work? I mean, when you think about it, isn't this what everyone would want? Like, if you're in a relationship that doesn't work, you can either turn it into a horrible, nasty mess, or you can say, hey, look, this doesn't work. Let's part ways and be comfortable somewhere else. Humans aren't great at that conversation, but gee, at work, this should be an easy thing for us to have. And it comes back to, particularly if I understand the person, I get what's going on in their world, and they trust me, then that becomes a good, useful, and I think easy to have some ways leadership conversation.
Yeah, I love it. It's that open conversation, right? Where you can actually do it instead of trying to, do things under the rug or just say it the way that it is. And yeah, it's very powerful. You go.
No, I was going to say, building on that, the other thing to just keep in mind is if you're leading a team, yes, we talk about the individual and how do we empathetically support this person or empathically support this person through this, sure. But also think about the rest of your team. Because when there's someone in the team that's not doing the work, they're not meeting standards, they're causing issues, right? That isn't just impacting them and you, it's impacting the whole team, right? And so I think of how do I have empathy for everyone, for this group that I'm responsible for, then I have to take action here. I have to. It's not empathetic to go, oh, look, everyone just pretend that person doesn't. They know that person exists. They're creating tension. It's not supportive for it. Like, be more bold in the way you think about this. Think about every customer or client that is experiencing this underperformance. Are you having empathy for them? Probably not, if you're letting them suffer and fail, right? So, this idea of I want to be nice to this person and be friendly and sugarcoat it, that's not kind and it's not empathetic, right? Empathy is saying I care about them. This isn't working for them, for everyone around them. I have to make a change that's going to be positive for everyone out of this. That's at the heart of leading with empathy here.
Yeah, I love it. And I guess there's a way to do it, right? Because I know a lot of stories where there's been bad areas, right? Where there's been a lot of tension, a lot of arguments, let's call it, emotions are sort of flying in these elements, and you're trying to get, wherever it's the leader, the person, the team, trying to move them along. And then eventually, whether they have to go down a performance management route, which is not ideal, right? But, there's all these different elements. And I guess that emotional side, because, ideally, it works both ways, right? But, maybe as the leader, we're more open to doing this, but maybe there's an issue with the person, right? That's creating an emotional resistance, right? Or somebody else in the team that can have it. So I guess what are some things about that, you maybe want to share around the emotional side or the communication side, like you said, with them or with the team, so that it moves, as best as possible and as quickly as possible, to the ideal outcome.
Yeah, so there's a few pieces here. One, I'd say as a leader, when you're going to give someone feedback or have a tough conversation, how you feel and your intent is really important in how you're going into the conversation, right? If you're going in there blood boiling, angry, upset because you want to tell this person how bad they are, then you're dragging all the emotions in. And they're not very kind emotions. They're pretty rough emotions. What do we think the result would be of that, right? It's a fight. You're going in with a fight, and if you're in a position of authority, it's a one-way battle. That's just cruel. Equally, if you're going in scared, worried, nervous, oh, I want them to like me, I wish you're also not, you're being selfish. You're worrying about you and not about them. And so the first thing I'd say is we have to be kind, right? I go into the conversation and my intention for having a performance management conversation or whatever the case might be, whatever type of feedback I might be needing to give is I want this person to succeed. I want them to be happy and successful and better, and I want them to improve. And they're not meeting standards, so I need to have the chat, and I care about them, and I want them to do better, right? So I care, and it's all about being kind to them. That's critical. It's not kind to tell someone you're doing just fine when they're failing, right? Stop lying to our people. If they're not meeting expectations, we tell them they're doing fine. What are we doing other than setting them up for more failure? The second thing is, why do emotions often become so heightened in these feedback conversations? And there's a lot of factors, and it's not universal. So we'll sort of talk to this sort of generally. But in my experience, what happens is someone's performing a certain way and it's below expectations, but nobody says anything. Right? We just let it go. Oh, let's pretend it doesn't exist. And so that person starts to sort of think everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine. And then somewhere down the path, someone says, oh, you're not meeting expectations. And of course, this person then goes, well, what are you talking about? No one's told me. They feel embarrassed. They feel frustrated. They feel like they're being victimized or it's a witch hunt, right? All of those, you can see in that scenario, all of those are valid emotions. But you can also see that those would boil up pretty strongly, particularly if the manager says, well, you're not meeting expectations and that's just how it is. You're not getting a bonus, right? Oh, you can imagine what happens. So the emotions will get pretty hot then, won't they? How will the person feel the day after that? Well, the same. And if you just ignore them, oh, that's just going to build and build and build. And so I think what happens too often is this build-up of emotion over time takes place. And so when we play this performance management card, or, we're entering the formal process or something like that way down here, of course the emotions are really raw. And of course they've become really big because the issue happened way back here, right? This was the issue. When should we have addressed it? Way back here. Well, how high were the emotions then? Probably not very high at all. Right? You've started a new job before and stuffed something up. I'm sure I have, definitely, many times. And if someone tells me straight away, oh, no, but that's not how we do it, let me show you how, let me give you some help here, no problem. But when we just ignore people and let them set themselves up for failure, of course emotions become red hot. The other thing is, it's okay for people to have emotions, right? As we said earlier, the emotions are the thing that drives discretionary effort and purpose and passion. All those things are emotions. Great. Don't ignore them. Embrace them. And it's okay to say to someone, hey, look, I can see this is, you're really emotional and passionate about that. That's great. Let's embrace that. But we also have to get through and talk about these specific things. And I want to help you channel that emotion into something really positive. What's that going to be? Now, that might be their work. That might be their next job. Depends, right? But don't try and turn the tap of emotions off, right? Humans are emotional. We have emotions, and that's some of the best things about us. The idea of turning it off is silly and impossible. In many cases, what we need to do is embrace it and go, tell me more, I'm interested. But if we can look after our own elephants first, make sure we're in a calm, kind, caring manner, we're in a much better place to be able to do that.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Love that one. And I know you work with a lot of very large organizations, and you do a lot of speaking and everything like that with them, and to help them, in that culture, empathy, various elements there. So these guys, have a bit more different challenges as well, right? Because you're talking big teams, there's management levels, all of this, right? Which is a bit more complexity. So I just love to hear a little bit more about maybe those challenges or solutions that, may be a little bit different as you start to really get a lot bigger down the line.
There's a great saying I like, which is good leaders build teams, great leaders build leaders. And I think that's it's something that comes into play a lot more. It's probably more important when you're at a big scale. All right. So when you've got some of my clients have got 35, 40,000 staff, right? These are huge organizations. You need leadership to be distributed all the way down as far as you can, because it doesn't matter how good a CEO you are, you can't oversee, you can't even know the names of 40,000 people. It's just not possible. You can't understand them. You can't have a relationship with them. And so you need to be able to make sure that a person way down here who's doing the job for our clients, they've got leadership close to them that can support them, does care about them, and does look after them. So I think at that scale, what's critical is that we teach leadership all the way down. And that sounds really obvious, but leadership is one of these jobs where, if you want to be an accountant, you do an accounting degree. You want to be an engineer, you do an engineering degree. Most people, when they get into a leadership role, they've been good at their job and they go, okay, now you're the leader. And they get no training, they get no support, they get no idea on how to do what they're supposed to do. So we actually need to invest in much more of that. Let's think about leadership as a set of skills and capabilities that we have to teach and support people to develop at all levels. Now, what's interesting is when you're in a smaller organization, people will go, oh, I don't need to do that because I can oversee everything. My question would be, then won't you become the bottleneck? If you have to oversee everything, if you have to be there all the time, if every decision has to come through you, you're setting yourself up to be the bottleneck. You're going to be the cap on your organization because your capacity is all that's going to hold us back. Whereas if I can teach my people to have a leadership mindset, have a leadership capabilities, to have tough conversations with each other. When you're playing a game of soccer and you're on the field, yes, the coach is going to be able to shout things out at you, but you also need to be able to give feedback to each other. You need to be able to support each other. in positive and critical ways sometimes. And that's what we need. The best teams have that culture where everyone's sharing, everyone's giving feedback, everyone cares about each other. Trust is built across the group. And I think if you're building an organization and thinking, oh, I'll do that when we get big, you won't get big. You'll stop us from getting big. I have to do it now. And then it becomes the way we do things as we become big.
Yeah, I love that. Really powerful there that you've just shared. And because this is some of the things that, can hold people back there of, wanting to do everything ourselves and like that. But you've got to be able to let go, right, as the leader and create the other leaders so that we can grow and get the business to where we want it to go. So I love that, mate. It's been really powerful, mate, of what you've, shared with us today. So much gold. And I guess as we're starting to wrap up, like what one key piece of advice would you like to give to everyone, watching and listening today?
I think it's as a leader, just actually care about people more, and maybe not even as a leader, just as a human being, just be more interested in the relationships you have with other people. If it's customers you're dealing with, be interested in not about the product they're buying or the need you're serving, but understand what's going on in their world. Understand, be interested in what's going on for them, not from the perspective of there's a dollar sign for it for me out of it, but because I care about them. When you're working with your people, ask them what's going on at home. If you want to motivate performance through giving someone a bonus, just think about the difference between I'm going to give you maybe $1,000 bonus versus I say to you, hey, Athen, I know your kid's got his soccer game on Friday and you're rostered on, but you know what, mate, just take it off. We'll pay you for it. I just want you to take a couple of hours and go and spend the time because I know you're really passionate about your kid's soccer game. One of them is going to cost me about a third, if not less, right? It's going to cost me almost nothing. The other one is going to cost me $1,000. But what do you think the benefit will be in terms of the motivation and which one of those two is a person going to go to a barbecue next week and go, oh, do you know what my boss did? Oh, it was amazing. They're not going to talk about $1,000. And so again, be more of a person who cares about them as humans.
Yeah, awesome, mate. I love that. Definitely really, really powerful and helping them with their needs and really what's important to them. And we connected through our networks. I learned about your awesome journey from the, corporate strategy management consulting to, Australia's largest financial services to now being the dynamic CEO of Empathic Consulting. Awesome guy, mate. So knowledgeable. And I love these conversations, which are so important in business and that, every business owner or leader, needs to be working on and being a master at so that, you could really create an amazing place that people want to work at. And you're doing an amazing job at, really rippling this out to a lot of organizations, big and small, across the journey. And I'm sure you continue to, empower businesses and leaders to enhance performance, through transformative power of people, culture, and empathy, mate. I'm very grateful we connected. Look forward to, connecting further, as always, mate. So how can people find you and get in contact with you?
Yeah, look, easy is on my website. So danielmurray.au is my speaker site where you can come and have a look at, what I do and how I do what I do. And empathicconsulting.com is where we sort of have a lot of our workshops, programs, ebooks. There's lots of free stuff on there. You can go and grab it. And I'd recommend people to connect on LinkedIn. I'm on there probably too often, but I'm on there a lot. You'll find me there. Just search Daniel Murray. Mine's got a big orange photo behind me. So, you'll find me on there and always happy to connect with people, start conversations and try and understand them as well. But thanks so much for having me on, mate. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, you're welcome, mate. It's been a pleasure as well. And definitely check out Daniel on the websites, LinkedIn. He's very, very prominent on there. Gives a lot of value out, on top of what's today. It's been a pleasure interviewing you, mate. And thanks for being on the Business Growth Show.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to this show where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athan Cassiotis, or visit my website, athancassiotis.com. If you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. I completely agree with you, or do I? The only way you know is if you tune in next time. So until next time, remember that our business grows when we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So remember to design your growth and results.